This is Stefanos, and I'm here with Chris and Eric Martinez with the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode on the Dynamic Lifestyle Podcast. Whoo! We are excited about today's guest, Mr. Stefanos Sifandos.
Yeah,
did I pronounce that right?
Yes,
absolutely, brother. My heart was beating on your name because I asked you right before, and I was like, "That's a tough one," but glad I got it.
Oh, good man, thank you.
Yeah, how you doing today?
Really well. I can't get the smile off my face. I'm super excited to be here. I love doing this. This is so cool, man.
Absolutely, I see the smile on your face. I feel the energy. I mean, today's Monday. It's a new month.
Yeah.
I mean, what's there to complain about?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Nothing.
So I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're headed back to San Diego today as well too. So I appreciate you, and I know you're going to deliver a lot of wisdom today.
Thank you, gentlemen. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, we're joking around before that you were asking who's who.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of funny. Just
And you know what? I'm still confused now. I'm good.
So Stefanos, how did you get into coaching and mentoring males?
Yeah.
Very interested in that.
Yeah, great question. So for me, it was redefining my own sense of masculinity. So I've been in the health and wellness space. I'm 37 now. I've been in the health and wellness space since I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that? I mean, do the math, like 19 years, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and it's been in the physical health and wellness space, mental, emotional, spiritual. But I hadn't really niched in coaching or working with men or mentoring men or just working with men's issues and what does it mean to be a masculine man in contemporary times in today's world. Until probably a few years ago, where my own sense of masculinity came into question, the way I was behaving in a relationship. I was in a relationship a number of years ago, and I was unfaithful in that relationship. I was disconnected in that relationship. I wasn't present. I wasn't telling the truth. I wasn't being a human being that I wanted to be, and I wasn't being the man that I wanted to be. And I started deconstructing all of that, and the reason why is because she found out I didn't even have the courage to tell her. So I started even looking at that. And why couldn't I just be truthful? First of all, I was doing something that was way out of integrity, and then I couldn't even tell her. She had to find out. And so there was a lot of me going really deep into the nuances of my behaviors and actions. And as a man, I just wanted to take responsibility. So I started looking at that accountability, responsibility, being more decisive in who I was, not wavering, being on the fence with decisions and how I looked at life, and started looking at these constructs of what does it mean to be a healthy man in the world. So I went and obviously I've leveraged, not obviously, but I've leveraged my background and my studies in psychology, behavioral science, philosophy, and so forth, and varied mind, body, mind, emotion modalities to go deeper into my own self. And I leveraged help. I've got help. Like I really looked spiritual guide, mentors, spiritual healing, counselor, psychologist. I spent a lot of time in solitude. I started distinguishing between, because I spent a lot of time in my own child, being isolated and alone because of upbringing, and I started making a distinction between isolation and solitude. Solitude is something that's very good. For me, it was something that was very good that would benefit me and benefit those that I came to. Whereas isolation was more so solitude for me. And so that alone with that sense of being alone and being isolated, I'm a victim. I'm passive. I have that power. So this is how I started. I started spending time on my own. And so, I mean, there's more to it. something that's inspiring us deeply.
So where the hell to go? And just one last thing to add to that. I mean, we've been literally around the cities
Mark Picciotto.
Oh, yeah.
Strongest people are hardest. Now, it's not about being in a do or die situation. It means that you can be more resilient to challenges that you face in life. You can be more resilient at every level. And so when we talk about strong people are hard, it's really transcend that into the emotional body, the physical body, as well, psychology, the relational. Gaining strength and resilience is building that foundation. And I start with the physical, it's just tangible, it's easy. When we start talking about emotions and thought, it's intangible, it's immaterial. It can be harder for people to grasp sometimes, but the body's not. So, okay, where's your chest? Where's your finger? Easy, right? Easier at least. So we can start there. It's a power-based business.
So I want to introduce us
Yeah.
about communication,
Yeah.
chivalry, and ritual. So why are those three things so important to build upon in today's society?
Chivalry is an interesting thing. Well, communication in relation, I'll start with communication. So there's a communication, chivalry, what was the last one?
Building rituals.
Doing rituals, I love rituals. Okay, so communication is not everything, yet it plays a massive role. We think, communication is everything in relationships. Whether it's a relationship with a friend, a relationship with a partner, or a relationship with yourself. That's a priority, relationship with yourself. But communication plays a big role. I mentioned earlier around the way I used to speak to myself, and even sometimes now, if I'm pushed to my edge, emotionally or spiritually, if I'm really pushed to my edge, sometimes that old voice comes back, and it may just say, it'll be rude to me. I don't want to say some of the things it says, and then I think to myself, if I spoke to a friend like that, are they still going to be my friend? So I can check it now quickly, and before it's just random. But when I'm pushed to my edge sometimes, those old voices come back. But that communication with self is really important. And so I like to begin with what's important to me. Most people don't know what their highest values are. I think health is one of those values that needs to be in people's top 5 at some level. I think for everyone. Because like you said, it's our foundation for experiencing the world.
Right.
Whether it's travel that you enjoy doing, whether it's building business, whether it's connecting and communicating with people, whether it's love, whether it's having sex, whatever it is that, eating good food, whatever it is that you enjoy doing, your health really allows you to experience that to the nth degree. So communicating with self is really, really important. Understanding what are our highest values, asking that question. I'm a big believer of spending a few minutes every day, at the end of every day, just with self. You can just sit down, quiet place, you can close your eyes, you don't have to. You can journal if you like, and just ask, how did I spend my day today? Did I show up the way I really wanted to show up? Did I experience what I wanted to experience today? Did I live any of my highest values? Let me just check, what are my highest values again? Did I maybe have an argument with someone? Could I have behaved differently? Having that level of communication with self, that daily checking, it's liberating. And for me, that's actually the difference between being a quote-unquote successful person and an unsuccessful person. Because that level of communication, it acquaints us with ourselves, with our true self, with our true norm. And when it's regular and consistent, because consistency is key to everything. I mean, as an extreme example, you can be shooting up heroin. You're going to be really proficient at shooting up heroin if you do it every day on a consistent basis. So what do you want to choose to be consistent at? So how we talk to ourselves, how we communicate with ourselves is everything. And that lays the foundation for how we communicate with others as well. And so when we get to know ourselves in that way, we become less triggered and less reactive. And when we're less reactive, we can be responsive. And so you may say something that really upsets me, and I can just sit here and breathe for a moment. And maybe it may seem like an eternity of pause, but if I just pause with that and really ask myself, where's that coming from and how do I want to respond to it, the whole dynamic can change. But if I react from old wounding or feeling threatened to something that you may say, that's not going to help us. It's not going to help me. I'm just going to get angry. I live with that. It's not going to help our dynamic. And so the interesting part to that is, well, how does that feed into communication? And I'll tell you how. Because if we consistently become reactive because we're unchecked and we're not knowing who we are and we're not knowing what we really want, we're going to continue to experience that in our world. So we're going to experience those negative confrontations. We're going to experience disconnection in communication, isolation and distance in relationships, and that's not healthy. And then we can ask, what do I really want from this, or why am I here? But it's a preventative measure, not a curative one. So I can't get to that stage of I want to choose to be responsive as opposed to reactive unless I've done the consistent daily regular work over years. And so communication with self is everything. I start there, and then we can communicate with others, and we can communicate our needs, and we can learn to set healthy boundaries because we know what they are within ourselves. We can say, hey, I like you, but I don't like your behavior.
Yeah, and it's just a true testament. Just going back to just like we always put others before ourselves. We're just very good at that as humans, and I think it backfires. And if we were to focus on ourselves, take care of ourselves, how do we communicate with ourselves first, then it'll be so much easier to communicate with others. Love that. Love that.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned chivalry and creating rituals.
Yeah. So chivalry is a beautiful thing. I'm a big fan of ancient wisdom. So I started studying Eastern mysticism and Vedanta and the Bhagavad Gita and not just and just ancient traditions. I mentioned Joseph Campbell to you earlier. Yeah. He's a cross-cultural mythologist. He passed away now. He's an American philosopher. He was a brilliant mind, one of my favorite philosophers. And he studied cultures across different times in different places for the last thousands of years. And what similarities they have, what differences they have, and how we evolved as human beings in that sense as well. And so I started studying anything I could, and I still do, of course, from a very young age. And I was fascinated with why do we do what we do? Why build cities? What's the evolution of that? Why do we act the way we? Why have we gone away from agriculture now into this new era of technology? And why are we occupying cities? And there's less. We're less outside the cities. What does all of that mean? And so I came across chivalry. So I started looking at all the wars that we've had in our time that have been registered or historically accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
And so chivalry was an interesting one because in the 1500s, 1600s, there was so much war going on, especially in Christianity. So it was Christians versus the world. I'm simplifying here, but it was more of that. But these soldiers would come back, so in Great Britain, these soldiers would come back and just be devastated from war. And they bring that aggressiveness, they bring that temperament, they bring that distance and isolation and that pain that was on the battlefield, they'll bring it back to their homes. And so society was suffering massively. And so when the kings at the time said, we have to develop a code that we can adhere to as men, because men were obviously the soldiers then, and I mean, the majority of men still are soldiers, that men, they come back and they can, it's a code for the battlefield, but it's a code for off the battlefield as well. How can they treat themselves? How can they treat women? How can they treat families and society? And how can we integrate them back in? Essentially, that's what it was. It was a reintegration from war, from trauma, into everyday society. And so hence chivalry was born. And so I love that notion. I think, well, how can we bring that into what I was saying earlier around studying studying ancient practices? How can we bring those ancient practices into modern times, contemporary times? And that was the key for me. That's why I think chivalry is so important, because when I look at chivalry, I think, wow, treating oneself with respect and treating others with respect, honoring the feminine in life. I mean, that's a really beautiful thing, because it takes the focus off war, it takes the focus off all the violence and the aberrant experience, and it gives us an opportunity to focus on something that's really healthy and constructive and building as opposed to deconstructing and isolating. Because you can imagine soldiers coming, even in today's world, soldiers coming home and not having psychological treatment, not being understood, feeling very alone, and then bringing that into their world, bringing that into their families. I mean, that's creating fracture in our families, and our families are part of society. So that's a big thing that I believe in terms of relationships, healthy relationships, whether it's this type of relationship, whether it's an intimate relationships particularly, so when people are romantic, intimate relationships particularly, when they're healthy, man, that's the building blocks for a flourishing society. And I'm not the first to say that, and I'm not the only one to say that in any capacity, but I'm a big believer in that. And,
Yeah. And what are some like practical like applications that somebody can do right now that's listening to like maybe increase that chivalry, you know, in their relationship or, you know, in today's society?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I like to have an exercise of what's working. I just call it what's working now. That's it. That's what it is. So it's what's working now. So instead of focusing on what's not working, what is working?
Yeah.
So it's essentially a practice of gratitude, right? A little bit different. And so for most men are very cognitive and analytical. So when you ask them what's working, gratitude it can be a little bit elusive because it's a feeling. And so the state of gratitude can be more difficult to embody, a pure state of gratitude that requires more practice. When you ask someone what's working, it's a simpler question for me, especially for men that are highly analytical. So what's working in life right now? Well, for me, this year, I'm loving this conversation right now. I'm loving being in your presence. I'm very humbled and honoured to be here. So this is working for me. Tick. Awesome. I've got clothes on my back. I live in a really good place. That's working. My fridge is full. That's working for me. Now then I can start, when I start thinking about it, then I can, I mean it's a practice obviously, I've been practicing for a long time, but I can start dropping into the feeling of wow, you know, I've got food in my fridge.
Yeah.
And many people
things
don't.
like that.
Many people don't. Wow. What's working? And so when we come from that place, what's working, we can then bring that energy, bring that posture into our families as well. And so instead of being highly strung or stressed with what's not working in life, maybe it's traffic, maybe I'm not being paid enough, maybe the weather's not to my liking today, maybe my boss is really angry all the time, but what is working? What is working for me? What have I got going for me right now? There's always something, always. Always. And unless you don't have an ability to think, and there's always something. You just got to dig in and ask the question and want to go there and want to break the cycle of negative thinking and being attached to the negative cycle of thinking. So that's something that's really important for me. And that lends itself to chivalry because it allows us to show up more present instead of being distracted with what's not working and being so highly strung and stressed. We come into a deeper sense of grace within ourselves and we can be more present in our relationships, particularly our romantic partnerships as well.
That's a great exercise. I'm going to start doing that too.
So simple.
Everybody can start doing that. That's what's great, you know?
So simple.
And then how about rituals, the third one?
And I want to know a little bit too. What are some of your daily rituals like in your lifestyle?
Yeah, sure. I'll go through my morning practice. Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you know, a good morning practice is really solidified by a good evening practice, you know, like a healthy evening practice. So it feeds into that. And my evening practice is really simple. I do my best, and I don't always hit this. And it's the same with the morning practice, but I do my best, and I'm fairly consistent and very deliberate. And so I say that because I want to give permission to people. It's okay to miss an evening or a morning or miss a portion of it. It's not the end of the world. It's just you remain in your own integrity. Just what you know when you're veering way off track, so get back on track. So my evening practice is really simple. I do my best to be in bed by between 9:30 and 10:30. Devices off by 9:30. Some reading in the evening. Intimate time with my partner, whatever that looks like. Maybe it's a conversation, maybe it's making love, maybe it's having sex, maybe it's something else, whatever it may be, right? And sometimes even just some sitting in silence. And I'm more drawn to that lately as well, just sitting in even a few minutes of silence just before I go to sleep. And maybe I'm thinking about something, maybe I'm not, it just depends. When I say thinking about something, I'm not stressing about something or worried about something, but just thinking about what would I like my final thoughts to be before I go to sleep this evening? You know, that type of practice. So I wake up in the morning. It depends when I wake up. I usually wake up anywhere between 5:45, so 5:45 to 6:30, somewhere between that time. Usually around 6ish. Part of my morning routine is going to the toilet. Actually, it's a really important practice. When we're talking about health and vitality, man, I've given the squatty potties. Are you guys familiar with that?
No.
Oh man, this is going to change your life. This is going to change your life. So you're sitting down on the toilet, and you put a stool. The actual brand is called Squatty Potty. They've got an amazing commercial. It's so funny with the unicorn, and the unicorn is shitting rainbow shit. It's amazing. Anyway, but you basically your feet are raised, so the angle of your hips and your knees, because our toilets are too low, right? So usually when you sit on toilets, you're like that. But it raises this and it releases a valve here. I can't remember what the valve is called in somewhere here anyway. Yeah. And it allows for a free flow. And so what that does is you're releasing more toxins, right? And it's just, you feel better. I've given people this. I've just said, just do that for
Yeah.
a week, and they've come back to me and they've said, I can't believe this. This is phenomenal. I feel better. I'm not bloated anymore. Instead of going to the toilet once every 3 days or 4 days, I'm now going to the toilet once or twice a day. It's an epidemic, you know. And then you can start, they get excited about it. Then you can start saying, well, why don't you drink a little bit more water? Why don't you eat this? And why don't you not eat that? Or whatever it may be, right? But that there, just on a side note, phenomenal. Been doing that for years.
That's awesome.
So toilet time is very important. 1 or 2 big tall glasses of water. I'll do some breath work. I have a breath work practice, and that just changes with whatever cycle I'm in, whatever the purpose is of what I want to achieve with the breath work. It could be some breath retention hold, it could be some holotropic breathing, it could be biodynamic breathing, it could be some gentle breathing, it could be pranayama, whatever it may be, whatever I'm interested in that time at cycle. Then there'll be some silent time, just some stillness and silent time as well. I particularly like doing that after breath work. It just feels really good. The body feels very open and expansive and spacious, and it feels great. After some silent time, I may do some journaling. I may do some writing, should I say. I haven't been doing that for a while. I may come back to it now that we're talking about it. But I'll definitely do some reading and then some training, movement, whatever that looks like. It's usually high intensity at this where I'm at the moment. Sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's going for a walk, I've got a ruck or something. And then I start my day in terms of, quote unquote work. It's not really work for me, I love what I do. But that's my morning, that's part of my morning routine. Yeah.
Well, and I can only imagine like how you feel after all that, right? Getting
Amazing.
into your work, just clear-minded, you took care of yourself, like you did your rituals, like you're ready to almost conquer the world, you know? And
Rituals are so important, man, so important, because those habits are what define us. And it also demonstrates what we give to the world and how people see us as well. We are defined by our habits, and our habits are our rituals as well, and our rituals are our habits.
I agree.
And so if we're very deliberate with what rituals we have, that's powerful. So another example of rituals could be, how do you choose to communicate with your partner? We talk about communication. We could tie that in as well. How do you choose to communicate under pressure? So let's say you're having an argument with your partner. How do you want to communicate that? How do you want to direct the conversation? I believe as men, it's very important that we take ownership of that and responsibility for that. And so if you feel yourself becoming reactive, it's about saying, hey, I'm being honest. I feel myself becoming reactive. I'm going for a walk. I'm going to come back. Come back in 10 minutes, then we can discuss this. Come back in 20 minutes and discuss this. And that can be a practice around if we're cultivating heat in an argument or a conversation, there's too much heat. What's the ritual around that? Do you go to one room, I go to one room, we do some breath work, or do we hug, do we do something? What's your ritual around that? Man, I remember this last year, we had a ritual because I was going through some really deep stuff. I decided to engage a couple for some psychosomatic, sexual somatic healing. And it wasn't healing, it was more of a healing, yes, but it was a program. And they were based in San Diego, they're based in San Francisco now. And it was an epic 3-month journey, but it brought up a lot of stuff. So I really came face to face with a lot of demons and shadow self, and it was just really, it was a trying time in our relationship. And so one of the rituals that we had, because I was projecting then a lot, I was blaming and shaming her because I was in so much pain. I was literally stripping layers off myself and off my ego and all of that. I'm not making excuses for my behavior. It was just a hard time for both of us.
Right.
But it was liberating. After that, man, I'm a different person. But I purposely did that, and I knew it would be tough, but I didn't realize it would be that tough. But anyway, that's another conversation. But one of our rituals was we could see, both of us could see me going into this prisoner of the mind and old stories coming up, and I would be communicating abruptly and harshly, and I would be very stubborn in my posture, and I wasn't being compassionate. And so one of the rituals were, when we saw that coming, I instigated this because it was a complete pattern break for me, because it was a state change. I would sit down, I would put my feet over my head, I'd be in a plow position, like a yogic plow position, and I'm pretty flexible, and I'd look at her and I'd say, okay, let's talk from here. So I would talk from that position, and then she would sit down, and we laughed, and so it broke the state, you know. And then I came out of that. I'm about yeah, that's what I did. It was ridiculous, but it worked, and that was a ritual. So you can have temporary rituals. I don't really do that now. I mean, I think actually I maybe did it the other day. It could have literally been the other, but I haven't done it for months. So I did it the other day, and she requested. She said, "Would you mind getting on the?" And I said, "Yes, darling, I will." Because I could see myself. I was getting aggressive, not aggressive, but I was just getting loud. And what we think sometimes is loud, or isn't loud, it can be really confronting for someone else because of their upbringing and their experiences. And so we have to take that into account. So rituals come in different shapes and forms.
Yeah.
You know? But yeah, there's a couple of examples.
I love that.
I want to talk a little bit about sex. I think
Yeah.
sex is a very interesting topic. You talk a lot about it on your Instagram, which is very, very cool. So you mentioned on one post that sex is the gateway, can be the gateway drug. Why is that? And why is, why is healthy, why is consistent, healthy sex so important in a relationship today?
Yeah, quality sex is where it's at. And so how do we define quality sex? So for me, quality sex is defined by where there's no inhibition in expression. And so that's a big statement though, because what underpins that is safety and trust. And so there has to be a level of trust between however many people are there engaging in that activity and having sex, whether it's 2 people, 3, 4, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just use a normative example. There's a man and a woman, 2 people that are in a long-term committed relationship, or they're in a monogamous relationship by today's definition of monogamy. And this is just a normative term, right? We can use a normative example. We can use any example you want. It doesn't really matter. But when there's safety and trust in that relationship, people can begin to open up more. So many people don't even know what their sexual desires are. We just ask, well, what's your sexual desire? Oh, I don't know. I don't have any. No, you do. Even if it's something that's really simple by someone else's standards, you have a desire, but we're so afraid to speak to it. So sex in the West, man, it's just, in countries like the US, and it's a paradox, right? Because when we look at pornography, 97% of the internet is pornography, I believe. I think that's a statistic. 96%, maybe more, could be 98%, could be even more than that, is pornography. And it's so underground. Like prostitution isn't allowed in the US yet. It's everywhere. In Europe, it's different. Sexual education in Europe is different, and because I've grown up in Greece and I've grown up in Australia. And Australia is much the same. It's very, very covert, but that breeds pathology. So if we're told not to really speak about something, or systemically where it's indicated that that's not really something. I mean, I went down that path. I kept all my sexuality underground. I was with prostitution and so much of that, and I was embarrassed about sex. It wasn't spoken about in my family. Even though I grew up with a European family, growing up in Australia just wasn't, it was a little bit more liberal, it was a little bit different, but in terms of in the school system, there was no real sexual education in any capacity.
No.
I mean, I don't know what it's like now. I've been out of the school system for a while, but I think it's changing in some areas, but not that much. And so the importance of sex being a gateway drug, or being that's a post I did the other day. it's sex is an opportunity to know ourselves at deeper levels. That's really what it's about.
Yeah.
But clean sex. So let me explain what I mean by clean sex. I mean when someone comes to that relationship, to that dynamic, and they know who they are. They believe in themselves. They know what they want. They carry that level of confidence. They have that level of self-awareness. They know how to set healthy boundaries. They know how to give, and they know how to receive equally as well. There's a lot of power in that. They know that they want to explore, they want to expand their sense of self and consciousness. So I've had amazing experiences in my life. I've had experiences on plant medicine. So I'll explain it this way. And I don't want to get too esoteric, okay? But this is the only way I know how to explain it. Where I've experienced no separate self. So so there's no distinction. It's like a complete ego dissolving. There's no distinction between me and this table. There's no distinction between me and you. It's really hard for me to understand, and I experienced it. But no separate self, almost collapsing duality. So I've had these experiences having sex. I've had these experiences on plant medicine. I've had these experiences being in nature, and practicing real gratitude, embodied gratitude. It's phenomenal. That was probably one of the most profound experiences. I've had it in breath work. In fact, breath work and gratitude have been, I want to say, more profound than plant medicines. Phenomenal, man. And then I've experienced that having sex. And so that collapsing, that ego dissolving, it's very difficult to explain. And I'm still understanding it. I'm still not even understanding. I'm still integrating those experiences because they've been so profound. And so when two people come together and they're clean in their intentions and their energy is as clean as it can be, and they know that this act, this interaction, this merging of each other, this giving of oneself fully without inhibition, without tapping into the shadow aspect of something. Not that there's anything wrong with the shadow, because the shadow gives form to the light, right? But when we come with that intention to give and be fully present, man, there's some magic that can unravel. And you've got to experience it. I mean, I can talk about it. I can be poetic about it. I can be philosophically poetic about it. That's great. That may inspire you to go there, but you've got to experience it. But again, let's go back for a moment. Prevention, not curative. And so it's not, oh, I'm going to have an intention. I'm going to then go into sex and it's going to be amazing. Maybe, maybe not. It's what work do you do? What effort do you put into yourself leading up to that? What daily practices, rituals do you have leading up to that? How do you see yourself in the world? How do you act in the world? How do you deal with your pain? How do you deal with challenge? How do you deal with your shadow? Have you explored your shadow? Have you got trapped trauma in your body from when you were physically abused as a kid? I mean, I had that, and that dictated how I behaved in the world, how I treated others, and how I treated myself, because I didn't address the trauma that I had as a kid. And so many of us have that trauma in one way, shape, or form. And trauma's relative and contextual as well. Like, you might be in school and a teacher says, Jimmy, you did shit work. That's a really bad work you did, and I'm going to give you a D, and you can't submit that. That's just so wrong. That alone, that may scar you for life. That's traumatic.
Yeah.
You don't deal with that. That compounds over many, many years,
Yeah.
and it feeds into itself.
Yeah.
And we bring that to sexuality. And now, why? Let's think about that. Because the unconscious self drives so much of who we are, and in sex, we're at our most vulnerable. We're naked. I mean, nudity isn't really, that's another paradox. I mean, nudity isn't really accepted in society. Really. I mean, it's accepted, sure, but it's not, it's frowned upon in some way as well.
Absolutely.
Yet sex sells. And that's okay in that domain because it's marketing dollars and it's making a lot of money and satisfying certain special interests. But anyway, a side note. So we're most raw and vulnerable when we're having sex. We're naked, we're bearing our soul, there's emotions there as well. And so if we're not clean in our energy, what comes up? What comes out? I don't even want to answer that. I'd love for everyone just to think about that. I really go into and be responsible for thinking and feeling into that.
Yeah.
And that's what happens time and time and time again.
Yeah, man, that's deep. And I want to go back to what you said about just like kind of the foundation of starting off with, sex is understanding your sexual desires.
Yeah.
Right? So can you give me like an example of just like for people like get their brains started to go, like what are like kind of some examples of like sexual desires that they should be looking for, to understand?
Yeah. Maybe some people want to experience with multiple people, like swinging or orgies or whatever that may be. And again, that may be really, when we think about that, we can't do that. That's not healthy. That's not acceptable. My mother found out, or my friend found out about that. I'd be ostracized. Maybe you want to see your partner dress up in a particular uniform. Maybe, I mean, I'm using a kink example, but maybe it's something else. Maybe a desire is that when you come home, your woman has the candles lit up, and you're more of the sensuality. The candles lit up, there's scents on, there's a massage table out, and maybe that's a desire of you. That's a fantasy. No, how many people do you know that could tell you what some of their sexual fantasies are?
Not too many.
Not too
That's
many.
why I asked
Yeah.
them, because I love this, right?
Yeah.
And this is something I want to start even getting more clear on too.
Yeah.
Because it's so important.
Yeah, because we're so embarrassed.
Yeah.
We're embarrassed of our own sexual fantasies. We're embarrassed about what we truly desire and what we want.
And that's why I think like porn is such a big market, because it's a big fantasy and that's what people want, but it's like they're afraid to express that to a partner.
And that's a big part of that. And I did a video on this a few weeks ago on pornography and the pain points. And I was listening to Esther Perel, and she really inspired me to go deeper into this and understand this. And we're talking about showing up vulnerably when having sex. One of the greatest pain points for men, 3 of the greatest pain points, is rejection, abandonment, and humiliation. When you're having sex, if a woman's not completely into you, the man's wounding will come up. Oh, I'm being rejected. Oh, does she not like my body? Maybe I'm not moving right, I'm not touching her right. And then the stories start. The stories start because there's no self-confidence. We don't know who we are. We don't understand other people. We don't understand that maybe they're in their discomfort. Maybe they've had a really bad day today. We don't openly communicate. Come back to communication for a moment about we just sometimes we go on repeat because we just think it's the right thing to do, and we don't have the courage to speak to each other and say, I'm not feeling connected right now. And I don't want to have sex. I don't want to be penetrated. I don't want, or as a man, I don't want to penetrate. I don't feel like doing that right now. And we don't even have the courage to say, can we just hug, or can we just be naked and touch each other, but without actually having sex? And women are really scared to say that because they don't want to let their partners down, or they don't want to feel embarrassed or feel inadequate, or there's all this shame that comes. It's this shadow stuff because we don't deal with it. And so we have an opportunity to really see ourselves and see the other person. And so when we're speaking to fantasies or desires, we're really speaking to getting to know yourself and then learning to express that with other people that you care about.
Yeah.
And that can be really painful. So we go back to that rejection, that humiliation. We'll go back to pornography, rejection, humiliation, abandonment. It's easy for men to watch pornography because the woman's always satisfied.
Right.
It's low risk, no real vulnerability. It's a guarantee. She's always going to be happy. You're always going to ejaculate. It's an easy choice. Mm-hmm. But what underpins that action, or the reason for that, 9 times out of 10 will be the fears that men have around being rejected and feeling alone after being rejected, or humiliated for their performance, or performance anxiety, or their body, or whatever. I mean, men have body shame as well, just like women do.
Oh yeah.
Massive. I've done another video on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so these are big things. And that's why pornography is an easy scapegoat. It's an easy way. Easy. Because being emotional and integrating the emotional self with our sexuality is confronting and very foreign for most of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pour some water on that mic.
This is good stuff. This is super interesting, like really, really good stuff. So I appreciate you just like opening up and just really going deep on this stuff, because I think it's so damn important for, especially men too, that are listening to this, to really get clear on this type of stuff and be open. So thank you.
I want to share something as well, and this is being really open. Have I shared this before? I'm thinking maybe not in this way. So when I was in a far unhealthier version of myself, prostitution was the norm for me, and it wasn't because I couldn't communicate or connect with women. It wasn't because I couldn't be with women in any capacity. That wasn't the issue. It was part of it was habit, part of it was culture. But what really pinned that when I went deep into that was that I was just searching for intimacy. And even when I had a girlfriend and I had a partner, I didn't want to fully show myself to her because there was too many emotions involved. But as a man visiting a prostitute, I was paying her for a service like pornography. Mm-hmm. She had to be that person. She had to be happy and smiling, and all that. So it was always guaranteed. And I wanted this intimacy. I was screaming for intimacy and connection, and I was looking for it in the wrong places because I was coming from my shadow self.
Yeah.
And that was a very hard realization. It come to realize, a hard truth to realize, because it meant then if I really wanted real intimacy, I had to go deep into myself and unpack some really quote unquote ugly things that were driving, quote unquote, not to be judgmental, but ugly behavior. Yeah. But rather misaligned behavior. It's not that it's ugly or it's not, but it was misaligned. That's not what I wanted. But I kept doing that because it was safe.
Yeah, wow, absolutely.
It was safe, and that was very painful.
Yeah.
And I share that because so many men experience that in one way or another. I'm not alone in that. I'm not isolated in that. I'm not unique in that. So many men experience that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that.
That.
I'm sure even if it hits one person that's listening to this, that's amazing. Yeah. So now, Stefanos, I want to move into some rapid fire questions. You ready?
Yeah, I love rapid fire. It's cool. It's always exciting.
In crazy LA, we were talking about earlier, there's billboards everywhere.
Yeah.
If you had a chance to just put a message on the billboard, what would it be?
Be willing.
Be willing?
That's it.
Okay.
Be willing.
Finish the sentence. Finish the sentence. The world needs more of.
Of this.
Of this.
This type of connection.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What are you currently missing right now in your life?
I'm missing a good solid tribe of men at the the moment, but I'm building that up because I just moved from Australia where I had all my brothers and my men there, my friends. So I'm recent. I'm new to the US. Just got my green card not long ago.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you.
Love
Thank
it.
you. Yeah.
What is one gift or something that you have yet to discover, but it's coming soon?
Gift within myself. Is it?
Absolutely.
Oh wow. Oh. Deeper levels of compassion and empathy for self and for others. I can feel that coming. There's a softness that's coming in me. It's coming. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice. What's one skill that you would advocate to the listeners, like knowing everything that you know at this point, all the experience you've had?
Be willing.
Be willing.
Be willing. Yeah. And I can elaborate on that if you
Give
want.
me just like a little, like maybe a practical step they can start taking
Absolutely.
towards that.
Be willing to go into the unknown. Be willing to face pain and challenge. Be willing to be resilient. Be willing to look at the tough stuff, the difficult things, the difficult areas of your life. Just be willing to be scared. Sum it up.
Like that.
I love that about the unknown because one of our mentors, I don't know if you've heard of him, his name's Philip McKernan.
No, I haven't.
Man, such a great guy. We had him on here, but gosh, he's done so many talks, and he really emphasizes that try to be open to living in the unknown, and that our wounds are our greatest. How does that go?
Now, our greatest gifts lie next to our deepest wounds.
Absolutely.
Completely resonate with that. I love that.
I love that, and it's hard to go into the unknown because it's the unknown, but it's very powerful at the same time.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Love that.
What is next for Stefanos?
Oh, so much. Back on what I said earlier about building tribe. I'm building tribe now, so I'm starting to feel more fulfilled in that space. But it was missing for some time, and still not quite where I perceive it to be. But so much. I'm doing more men's work here in Southern California, and next year over the US as well, and Canada too. Like I'm very, very excited, and back in Oz, back in Australia as well. So that's next deeper men's embodiment work. We're running physical retreats per se. With my beautiful fiance, we're launching our brand together. I say brand, but it's our service, and it's around love for self, love for relationships, love for good things in life. What we value most, and so that's happening on the horizon as well. And we're getting married in September, so very excited about that.
Congrats.
Yeah, thank you. So.
Yeah. And then also the podcast.
Things. Yes, that's exactly right. Yes, the podcast is definitely coming. 100%.
Yeah. And then what are 2 books that you would recommend to the listeners?
Oh.
Game-changing books. Has to be 2.
Okay. For me, one of the game-changing books of my life was Walking with the Himalayan Masters by Swami Rama.
Okay.
I was talking about him literally 2 days ago. With a fellow student participant on the Chris Artist Mastermind, Sandy, because she's actually from his lineage, which is really beautiful. So, Walking with the Himalayan Masters, Swami Rama, and the other book. Oh, this is hard. I'm gonna go Bhagavad Gita.
Okay.
Yeah,
Heard of that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that's basically the Bible of Hindu mythology, but that's I'm bastardizing that. It's very much not, but Bhagavad Gita. It's a beautiful story, but an allegory in there. But the philosophy and the wisdom is epic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Before we ask the last question, I want to just personally say thank you so much, again, for coming down here, spreading all this amazing, knowledge, wisdom. Like I said, I felt the energy starting off. This is going to be a great relationship going forward. I
feel
know
that too.
2 crazy big eyebrow twins. What more do you want?
Nothing more. That's perfect.
But I also want to just, acknowledge you and just say, I see so much success coming for you, just
Thank you,
because you have so much to offer the world. I don't know and I don't know enough about you, but I have this feeling that you're just going to do something big, and we're going to just see your message, your name, just get bigger and bigger throughout the years. So I just want to just commend you on that and just wish you nothing but success going forward.
100%.
Brothers, I really appreciate that. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank
So my
you.
last question is, what does living a dynamic lifestyle mean to Stefanos?
Just being real with who I am and owning the stuff that doesn't feel too good, and really embracing and owning the stuff that feels great. And that's something I learned over the weekend a great deal, more so, really cemented in my psyche, is celebrate.
Yeah.
Celebrate the wins. I mean, you're going away tomorrow and you're going to have, celebrate that. You deserve that. You own that. I mean, you guys, what you're doing here is
Thank
such
you.
a beautiful thing. Celebrate that. You said it earlier. We can impact one person. We take that for granted, you know. I remember it was who was saying it. I can't remember if. I can't remember who was saying this, but it will come to me. But basically, a friend of ours, Aubrey Marcus, he was saying when he started his journey a few years ago, and I won't get this right, but essentially he was disappointed in having, I don't know, 10,000 followers or 10,000 subscribers to something like a podcast, and he was down about it, and his friend said to him, man, that's 10,000 people, 20,000 people, it could be 20 or 30,000, he said, that's a stadium of people. Like, think about that. You're impacting 20,000 people, and you want 100,000, you want 1 million, you haven't got there, whatever that may be. And we take that for granted, you know. This social media, this following. The people that have 200,000 followers, and we look at them and go, oh, damn, wish we had 100,000 followers. And they're probably looking at the people that have 600,000, oh, I wish I had 600,000. And what does it all mean? If you're impacting and you're speaking, you're coming from truth, we have to remember that. I forget that as well sometimes.
Yeah.
It's a big thing. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Celebrate that.
Thank you for closing on that. That was powerful, and man, 100%. Because like Eric and I, super hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna remember that.
Enjoy
I'm
that
going on
part.
my trip, tomorrow to celebrate that win and be in the moment. So thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate
Now,
it.
is there anything that the listeners can support you on currently right now, and where can they find you and keep up with what you're doing?
Amazing, thank you for that. So Stefanos Safandos on Instagram, my social media handles, and my website, stephanossafandos.com, and reclaimyourkingdom.com. That launches July 17th. We kick off, so I'm recruiting now, and men are coming on board now. So I'm very, very excited about that. July 17th that starts. So I'm starting to take applicants now. Yeah,
Amazing. So we'll have that all linked up in the show notes. Ladies and gentlemen, go follow Stefanos to support him. And until the next time, thank you, Stefanos. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brothers. Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. If you guys want more access to podcast interviews and videos just like this, make sure to click the link below so you guys can check out all the other episodes that we have. Also, if you're a personal trainer, a gym owner, or a fitness professional, and you're looking to take your business online, make sure to check out the link below and join our Online Fitness Coaches Personal Mentorship Program. In this program, we actually have 2 live trainings. The first live training is with Eric and I, and we actually teach you guys about sales, marketing, persuasion, social media, how to be a better online fitness coach. And the second live training is with an expert that teaches you stuff just like that, what I just mentioned, okay? So if you guys are interested in that and also creating more income, influence, and impact and taking your business online, make sure to check out our Online Fitness Coaches Personal Mentorship Program. We'll see you on the inside.